Okay, so we are going to continue through with these tools, just walking through all the panels, all the tools, quick keys, and then we're going to talk about type basics, how to use type in Illustrator, and then a little bit about font foundries and just managing type. This is a little bit of a repeat in type 1. So later in type 1, if you have typography 1, we do talk about type management and foundries and that sort of thing. But I'm going to give you a little run through now. So where were we? Oh yes, the quick keys. So, quick keys can really save you a lot of time switching back like from one thing to another. Lasso tool, so this kind of like helps you to select different points on the paths and segments and objects by drawing, freehand shapes. The pen tool, so you'll see here with the pen tool, you can click from point to point, and then you can also change those anchor points and handles and create different like curves while you're creating things. So example, that mountain there, so you see on some of these tools there is a little tiny white arrow, so this just means that there is more in that panel. So if I click on that there, or I click and drag out, so I have my pen tool, I have my add anchor point, I have my delete anchor point, and then I have anchor point tool. And then you'll see on the right hand side here is all our quick keys. So P for pen tool, plus sign to add anchor points, minus to delete them, and shift plus C to adjust your anchor points. So I'm just going to click on that there. Right now, up at the top here, I have my color selection. So if I click on this down arrow, I have all my colors here. These are just the default colors pretty much. This box here is for fill color, and this box here is for the outline. So because we are using a pen tool, we are creating an outline of something. So I'm just going to change the color here just so that you can kind of see what I mean. So I have my pen tool selected here. I'm just going to click, drag out, so you can see that this is starting to fill in with red. And if I click and drag, I am creating, these, depending on what way I turn my mouse, the anchor point goes in. So it can be really, flexible to work with. I'm just clicking Command Z to undo things. So Command Z is a tool that you will use quite often, especially when you're working on things. It's kind of like that quick way to just go back and forth. Maybe you did something that you didn't mean to, you deleted something that you didn't mean to, you can quickly go Command Z, or I think it's Option Z on a PC. And you can quickly just go back. And then, so if you click and just go without clicking and dragging. So I've just clicked down and lifted up my finger from the mouse, so I'm not holding down. I just get one anchor point. I don't get the actual handles. If I hold down the shift key, it automatically snaps into a straight line. So this is really handy, especially if you're drawing like a box or something. And also like when you are drawing something, you can see this like little like magenta guideline, which kind of like tells you when to stop for like the intersection of another point. So, okay, got my box there. Perfect. I drew that box with the pen tool, but I could also just do it with the rectangle tool. So if I just click and drag, I'm creating a rectangle, right? If I just click and hold down shift, it creates a square so that it scales uniformly. So really handy, especially when you are doing, you know, different things and you want to scale things uniformly, especially when it comes to type. So if you have like outlined text and you want to scale it uniformly, you'll want to hold down the Shift key. So another really great tool to, you know, make your workflow a little bit quicker, another quick key to remember is if you select an object or type or image or something, even on artboard, so right now we have our selection tool on, so this black arrow. If I click on the Option key, I get both the black and the white arrow. So this actually allows me to duplicate something. So if I hold that down and I click on that image or whatever, the square, I click and drag, I'm able to duplicate this quite easily. Now I can also click and drag and hold down the Option and Shift if I want to, you know, paste it in or drop it in place. So Option, you get the double arrows, click, you start to drag, and then you hold down Shift so that it drags in place. Now you'll see here, as soon as I click off, I get these little arrows in between the boxes that indicate that it is equal space to one another. And it actually tells me how much equal space are, you know, between these boxes. So in this case, it's 1/4 of an inch, so 0.25 inches, which is great, especially, you know, if you're making like a mood board or a grid and you really want things to be uniform and cohesive. So I'm going to click off. Okay, perfect. I have my grid. So let's just say, you know, I'm just going to change the colors of these here, red, blue, and yellow. Maybe I don't really want a border. I'm going to turn off that. So now we see that my outline is, you know, unfilled. So I have red, blue, and yellow. Perfect. So let's say, you know, I wanted to make a grid. So I could actually highlight all of these. So what you would do with that is you would click and drag so that you get this like little, you know, marching dot selection, and it will highlight everything. Then what I can do is I can actually, oh man, I just sneezed. I tried not to sneeze and that really hurt. Ow. Okay. So, anyways, if you click on all of them, you have them all selected, you can duplicate all those as well. So I can hold down there so that everything is uniform, and you want to make sure that it pops in place so that it is all even. Okay, about there. Perfect. Okay, so let's just say, you know, I didn't hold down Shift and, you know, things are unaligned. What I could actually do is I could highlight, you know, if I want to align the red squares, I could highlight them. Or let's say, you know, I want to select like colors. I could actually go over to my magic wand tool and click on that, and it actually, you know, selects everything that's red or everything that is that color. So that's really handy, especially if you have like a large document and, you know, multiple colors and paths and whatnot. So, okay, I have both my red squares highlighted. I'm going to go over to my alignment panel, and I'm going to, so you'll see here, align objects and distribute objects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to align horizontally. Okay, so that pops into place. And then I wouldn't do that because then they go on top of each other and you don't really want that. Okay, so that is even again. But let's say, you know, this square was off, you know, off-centered. Okay, from the other two. I could click all of the ones that are in the line here, and I could go ahead and vertical align center. So that pops them all into one line. So yeah, so I'm just going to drag them over here. Okay, I want them all in line with each other again, holding down shift. Bring these up. Okay, perfect. All right, then you could also, let's say, you know, I'm just going to duplicate this. I'm going to duplicate this down here. And let's say, you know, these are all kind of like off-centered, right? The lines are not equal to one another, and they're slightly off by like a smidge. So what I could do is I could highlight all of those. I can vertical align. And then I could also distribute the objects to one another. So I could either distribute to the left, I can distribute to the center, or distribute to the right. I'm going to hit the center. So that way, what that means is it's the same space in between each of those items. Okay. You can also, instead of, you know, aligning it to the selections here, let's say, you know, I wanted to make this square. I'm going to change the color to purple. All right, I want this square to actually, where did I go again? Okay, so if I want it to align to like the actual artboard, I would just line it up there. So I would have to turn on, so you see up here, so we have our alignment tool here, but then we also have the alignment at the top here. So if you go to align to artboard, this little like page thing here, you can either align to selection, which we were doing, or you can align to the artboard. So if I have everything selected here, so multiple objects, it automatically aligns to the selection. If I only have one item selected, it automatically aligns to the artboard. So in this case, you know, maybe let's say I want to, you know, create this like grid thing, right? I want to highlight, you know, all 9 of those squares. And instead of aligning to the selection, I'm actually going to group them together. So I'm going to go Command G, that groups them. So Command and the letter G. So now if I click on one of them, it highlights everything. If I just wanted to, you know, select one of these squares, I would go over here to my direct selection tool, or I would hit the letter A and I would just click on one of them. Okay, and then it selects that item. So I just want the selection tool. So I have them all selected, and I want to now align them to the artboard. So because that's grouped now, I can align it to the artboard. So I'm going to vertical align and horizontal align, and now this Rubik's Cube thing is right in the middle here. Okay, so that is the alignment tool, and also the rectangle tool. If you click and drag on that rectangle tool, you'll see that there are other shapes in here as well. So we have a rounded rectangle tool, we have ellipse, we have a polygon, we also have the star and the flare tool. Let's say, you know, you wanted to make a triangle. So what you would do actually, instead of, you know, you could draw it out with the pen tool, which works fine, but you could also utilize this star tool. So I have the star tool turned on. If I just go over here with that star tool on and I click down, I get this pop-up window here. instead of clicking on the 5 points here selected with the star having 5 points, if I change that to 3 and press OK, I have my triangle. So yeah. Also, if you wanted to round the corners, what you could do too is if you have that highlighted, go to your direct selection tool and you see these little white dots in the corners there. If you click and drag on them, you can actually round those corners. And you can see the little pop-up as I'm doing that in dragging and scaling. The radius of that rounded corner is getting either larger or less, larger or smaller, okay? So, all right, have my rounded triangle. I'm going to make that orange. I'm going to make it lighter orange just so that all right, got a little pylon. Let's say, I wanted to make this into a pylon. All right, maybe, I wanted to add like a little stripe through it. All right, so I would, grab the rectangle tool. I would draw a little stripe through it, and I would change that to the color white. All right, okay, maybe I want to make it thinner. I can actually make it thinner. Maybe I want to make, 2 lines. Make 2 lines. Maybe one is thinner than the other. All right, sure, that looks like a pylon. And so instead of keeping it this way, I'm actually going to go over to the right-hand side and I'm going to find my Pathfinder tool. So I'm going to hit on that Pathfinder tool and I'm going to search for the divide function. So there's a couple different, options here. We have our unite, we have our minus front, minus or intersect, exclude, divide, trim, merge, crop, outline, and minus back. So I want the divide function. I'm going to hit on that divide, and what it basically did, it kind of acts like a cookie cutter. So whatever object is on top, it acts as like a cookie cutter and it basically cuts out that shape. So now, I have this, beautiful pylon. I'm just going to drag this over so that you can kind of see. So now that I have, actually I'm just going to draw a black square underneath. I'm going to change that to there, black. And okay, so I just drew this rectangle on top of it, but I'm actually going to move it to the back. So if I right click, I can go to arrange and bring back. You'll also see on these here, we have our quick keys. So upward arrow, command, and left bracket, sends it to the back. So I'm just going to hit on that. Perfect. Okay. So now I can see, I still have my triangle and I still have these, rectangles over top of them. But I can see if I hover over them close enough that they are cut out. So we have this like blue kind of like guideline showing us that. So what I could do is I can just highlight that and I could go in and manually delete those items. Or what I could do as well, because I'm already in this like isolation area, by double clicking on this grouped object, what I can do is I can actually click on the magic wand tool. I can hit the white area, which what happens then is it selects all the white area, and I'm just going to delete it. So that just like saved me so much time, like clicking and deleting each and every one of those. So this is really handy, especially if you like live trace something, or if you are creating a, more intricate vector graphic and you want to kind of like delete a whole bunch of things all at once. So yeah, this is our pylon, beautiful pylon. And you can see now that we've deleted the white area, we have, you know, this beautiful little icon, and we can put it virtually on any background and we can see through that area. So yeah, I'm just going to delete that for now. So those are a couple of those tools there. We also have the paintbrush. So, you know, you can paint something, you can like, you know, create a circle, you know, and that's like whatever. And this is like a vector line path. So let's just say, you know, I wanted to create something, right? A line, maybe I want this to be like an arrow pointing to something. What I can do is I can highlight that. Okay, this is a little bit like pointy there. I can actually go in and smooth it out. So down here we have our shaper tool, pencil tool, smooth tool, path eraser tool, and join tool. So I'm actually going to click on the smooth tool. Now some of these don't have quick keys. This one doesn't. So I'm just going to go over that and I'm going to smooth that out. So what the smooth tool does is it basically makes it so that there are less anchor points and nodes. So I'm still not really loving that. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to redraw it with the pen tool. So I'm going to click, I'm going to drag up here, and I'm going to hold down, and then I want this to be in the same line. I'm going to click and hold. About there. Okay. All right. So I have this like thing. It's like a little loop-de-loop. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to my stroke panel, and you know, let's say I want to make this a dashed line. I can go here, I can make it a dashed line. I can increase those dashes by, you know, making the number smaller here. If I wanted to create like a dotted line instead of a dashed line, what I would actually do is 0 and then, actually no. So this next is the gap, and then I'm going to actually do the dash the same. This is the gap, dash is the same. Okay, perfect. So I have that, but I'm still seeing that it is, you know, dashed line. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go up here and I'm going to cap that, and I'm going to make sure it's all rounded. Okay, so starting to get somewhere, but it's not quite where I want it. Okay, so you'll see here that this dash is 1 point, but I'm actually going to turn that to all the dashes to 0. And we're going to keep the gaps at 2. Okay, so we have our dashes at 0, we have our gaps at 2, and now we have our dotted line. Now I could either make this, you know, like a smaller, you know, dot, or I can make it larger. And I can do that through the weight. So if I make it larger, I'm going to have to, so we'll see here, okay, the weight of this line is 2 points, but our gap is also 2 points. So if I wanted some space to show up in between those dots, I would have to make it larger. So let's say, you know, 4 points for the gaps, okay? And I want to make sure that I'm changing all the gap points. Perfect. Let's say, you know, okay, that's kind of clunky. I don't really love it. So, you know, I could always make it smaller. So I could do, you know, 0.25 or 0.5. Okay, I like this a little bit more, but now I feel like the gaps are too much. So I can actually go in and change that and put all those gaps back to 1. All right, okay, cool. I like that dotted line. Perfect. All right, so that is how to create dotted lines. Now, if you want to create an arrow, I'm just going to use the line segment tool because we haven't talked about that yet. So the line segment is literally just like the backward slash is the quick key. So I can just click and drag because I already, recently did this here. I have this going on for my next line. All right, I don't really love the dotted anymore. I'm just going to turn off that dash so I have a straight line. But let's say, I really wanted to, change it back to this dotted line. What I could do is I could highlight whatever I want, and I could either go Command Z, so that's going backwards, or I can, let's say I have that still on the page somewhere, I can highlight that and I can actually use the eyedropper tool to get that back. So the eyedropper tool basically gets you to copy and apply the appearance and attributions between objects. So if this was like, let's say, I have these squares, right? Let's say for this square, I wanted to make it orange. I could highlight or select the eyedropper tool. I could go over here and I could make it orange with this pylon orange. Okay. But anyways, we are not going to do the stroked line or the dashed line. We're just going to have that. All right. So I have this here. Now, what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to use this lower panel to create arrowheads. So what I could do is actually just, click down and I have all these different arrows that I can, use and select. So, all right, I kind of like this arrow here. And let's say, I want to make an arrow on both sides. So I can actually, do that on both sides. Or let's say, I wanted this like end arrow situation. Now maybe I'm making like a Valentine's Day card or something and I want an arrow. Or I'm making an infographic and I want arrows. So I have that and okay, perfect. Okay, well, what if I want to actually flip this around and have the arrowhead on the right hand side instead of the left? So what I could do is actually just go to stroke here and then swap start and end arrows. Okay. Or you could simply highlight something. You can right click and you can go to transform and you can click on reflect. And you'll see here we have like a little preview button. You can turn on and off and that basically flips it for you. Also can flip things horizontal and vertical. And you can also change the arrow. Now let's say, I wanted to actually make it just make this a copy. I could just click on copy and it creates a copy for me. So now I have both. Okay, so those are a couple of the tools. I will talk about the text tool in a bit, but let me know if you have any questions. I hope that this was helpful, just really walking through the basics and understanding and getting to know the user interface of Adobe Illustrator.